Hello, good evening, and welcome to Sunday Night Breakdown Monday edition. Daniel Ratledge and Dave Forrester with you to go through all the action in Super League basketball this week. Let's chalk one up for the Nobody Goes Undefeated column and
Yeah,
start
absolutely, absolutely, Routledge. What a call. Yeah, outstanding.
start in Bristol on Friday. Bristol Flyers 68, London Lions 54. Solowadi and Scott were out of this game for London. Jonathan Williams was back. Not quite the best shooting game in the history of the Wise. This
So,
one, Dave. In fact, I did look it up. It was the 10th worst by combined field goal shooting. And another stat I came up with while we're on the subject of last week, if I'm allowed, just ignore the midweek ENBL game for the sake of
yeah,
a good stat, which I like to do. After 197 combined points last week in Caledonia, down to 122 this week, 75-point differential in consecutive domestic home games is the biggest variation ever at the Wise. Previous high was 67 from 98-103 versus the Raiders to 60-74 against the Rocks in early 2017.
I suppose later on you're going to tell us about the biggest differential between home and away games, aren't you?
I have got a stat which I did earlier, but I've got to open the file to
All
read it
right.
about teams who score more points in the first half of a game than they scored in the entire first game, and also the reverse of that, teams who concede more points in the first half.
I
But
figured
we'll
that was
save
coming.
that
I'll
one.
not spoil you for. Yeah. Um, yeah, teams don't go undefeated. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, 100%. What I will say is, they have one guy who that is a breakout in terms of a fire at fire, and
Yeah,
that
yeah,
he's not
yeah,
playing.
yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure how many games they will lose when Joel Scott is playing.
No,
That,
I suspect Andreas Kapoulas gave a little fist bump when
yeah,
he saw that Joel Scott was not.
and that's not to minimise Bristol or anything like that, but London aren't they're a really um, disciplined team. They don't play normal, what we would regard as SLB basketball. They have more size, so they don't need to. They don't focus that much on the opposition, but they do have flaws. Adamu has struggled over the past few weeks as kind of the point guard when Reynolds got injured, because he's playing a little bit out of position. He's retraining effectively, and in some of the games he hasn't been that comfortable. You've seen Sabonis pulling him across and talking to him, and just as he's trying to basically learn a new position. You then have outside of Scott, you wouldn't say anybody else other than probably McGusty is an absolute nailed on scorer.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well.
You
Watching
know, so and all these guys are only playing 22 minutes a game.
him.
So they're very unlikely they haven't got a Matt Morgan who's going to blast off a 36 point
Exactly.
in
I
32.
made the exact same point yesterday in discussions. There is no Matt Morgan, there is no Sam Decker that
But
will just torch you for
elevated.
30.
Yeah. And so the living and dying by their collective.
Mm,
Yeah, and obviously now they're bringing in Mike Sellers, another talented player but hasn't played, so he's got that to do. And they have this rule change now whereby they can rotate guys, which means that the coach is constantly looking probably 1, 2, 3 games ahead. Now, Bristol and London both had competitive games on Wednesday night.
mm,
Bristol played the German team, lost at home. London played a very good French team, lost at home, played very hard, played very well. But still, as far as London are concerned, no one played more than 25 minutes.
mm,
So they're playing hard and they're playing at a high level. But I think what you saw was in that game was a mental drop and a mental let up from the London guys, and they didn't have, and they've had a couple of them already, whereby they've kind of played dodgy halves,
mm,
and then they've kind of brought it around, and Sabonis has had to go to his main guys,
mm,
and what you didn't have was a group that was primed to kind of fight back because ultimately they held Bristol at 69, right?
68. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
68, right? 68, they should win. With
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
roster of 68, they should win. Okay. Now they shot 3 of 29 from the 3 point line,
Yeah.
which is a mental thing as opposed to a physical thing. And Bristol will say we played good 3 point defense, but they got 29 shots up, and a lot of them will have been good looks.
Mm,
Um, So the ball wasn't dropping. What Bristol did really well in this game was rebound, so they didn't give up too many second shots.
Mm,
Because that's how you, and of course that's where losing Scott has a big impact because you don't get the easy ones close to the basket. But I thought, yeah, 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 Routledge undefeated, yeah,
mm.
yeah, yeah, you just
Lions led early, but Zach Anderson 3-3 point play in a 12-0 run to lead 17-11 at the end of the first quarter, despite not getting any bench points until the middle of the second quarter and being 1 of 9 for three. Lions were still in the lead at halftime. They finished the first half. They started to make a few threes at the end of the half and scored the last 9 points to lead 33-35. They were still up two midway through the third quarter, but the Andersons and Dugalich made threes in an 11-0 run to 49-40, and then another 11-2 run with the Andersons again in the fourth quarter sealed it at 60-46. And it's the
yeah,
46, isn't it? That's the thing, is they hadn't got Scott to get them the the cheap points because nobody in the league can guard him. And then, as you say, 3 of 29 for three is the other way of putting the ball
yeah.
in
I mean,
Lions.
and you've talked about two runs there, 0 and 2.
Mm,
They're not a team which is accustomed to drought. But you have to have, but the danger of playing so many guys kind of so equitable minutes in games is that there are days when then no one's going to have it and no one's going to be into it long enough to kind of get it. I thought Rice started at the end of the third quarter. He gave them a little bit, and I was thinking, is he going to be the one to? Because I thought he was the most effectively the most. He was the most. He's the most SLB um, decorated player insofar as he knows what it's all about. It's his fourth year in England, but if you take
mm,
into account the Hemel year as well. And I thought he was the one who had the most urgency about all of them. The rest of them were just a little bit like, the ball's not dropping, the ball's not dropping. Um, but that's why, it is, these teams are good. All the teams are good.
mm,
All the teams are talented professional basketball players. And the gap with London, particularly, as I say, without Scott, um, is not as great as perhaps we all thought. Um, that said, it's still a gap.
mm,
And that said, there's still and any team can shoot 3 of 29,
mm.
so it can happen at any point. Slightly unfortunate for those of us clean sweep haters that they didn't do it in the trophy game.
Yeah, yeah,
That's all
yeah.
I will say. That Bristol did it in the league game.
Mm,
Because I've still got my eye on them for that. But yeah, yeah, just a great win for Bristol. That to hold, you have to do a lot of things physically right to hold that London team at 54, no matter who's
mm.
playing.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, offensively they weren't that smooth, but Zach Anderson really stepped up.
Mm,
Zach Anderson was a difference maker in this game insofar as he was able to score both ways, at going to the rim and making threes. And if you're holding a team at 54, you don't need many people to step up
no,
to
no.
make baskets. So
Well,
you know,
there were only three players in double figures in the whole of the game. Anderson had 22, so that's
yeah,
basically a third of the offense, isn't it? Zach Anderson. Joe Anderson had 12. They shot 38% from the
yeah.
floor and 34% from three. But London, with only one player in double figures, Ride 10 points and 7 rebounds. They were 32% from the floor.
Yeah, a course corrector, that one.
Mm.
Mm.
Uh, a win that's probably bigger for Bristol than it is a loss for London, if that makes sense.
At the moment, yeah, unless a meteor takes out half of East London, yeah.
Yeah.
Not
Let's
suggesting I want it to, just in case of
let's go to Leicester Riders 85, Caledonia Gladiators 79, and Dooku out after that injury in the Cheshire game. Martin was back after I think it's 9 weeks on the sidelines. Loving the Leicester signed Mark Loving, so he was
McLovin.
in. Mark McLovin, indeed,
Mark Lovin, sorry.
in for his first game in his second spell. Spielman was back for Caledonia. Wright and Allen dressed but did not play. So a first start for Gordon, and Ragsdale back into the starting lineup. God, it's taken half the time just to read out who
Yeah,
was and wasn't playing.
yeah, a couple of things. Firstly, the importance of a stretch four.
Mm,
Loving obviously very, very talented. Very I think come back from Argentina.
Argentina, yeah.
Was a key component in some exceptional teams.
Mm,
That Leicester had. Didn't look like he had his legs in this game. So I think he's got a little bit of way to go. But that kind of pickup kind of rounds off rounds off, I think, the team that he'll want to go forward with. I've been banging on about it for a few weeks about the need for the Mr. Four, particularly when Acott went, and it kind of allows everybody else to fall into their kind of natural roles. Martin might be the sneakier, more important guy
Mm,
because what you saw in this game ultimately was, well, as Rob continued to play the guys who have been playing. By the beginning of the third quarter, he was back. He was all in on his go starting five going forwards with
mm,
Lovren and Martin playing, and Menzies didn't play that much, and Sullivan didn't play as much either. So you like that move for Leicester, provided Loving can get his legs, basically.
mm,
Um, in relation to Caledonia, yeah, they're a little bit star-crossed at the minute.
mm,
Wright in particular is a guy that they really struggle to handle to lose. Allen, obviously a lot of points and rebounds, but they just brought in a guy to kind of take that role. And the difficulty they have is, I don't know what Ragsdale's shooting coming off in the starting lineup, but it's certainly not what he's shooting off the bench because I think he was one of 9 from 3 in this game.
one of eight I've got.
One of 8 he's got.
Yeah.
He had a couple of 0 for games
Mm,
when he started,
mm.
and yet when he comes off the bench, he's kind of
Lights out. Yeah.
2004 Kobe.
Mm,
So that changes them around a little bit. But what it does, Spielman is a shot maker.
mm,
And Spielman kept them in this game because he was able to get looks from the 4 spot, and which took the pressure, the pick and pop shots, etc., which took the pressure off the guards to continue to have to produce. That said,
so,
he
yeah,
didn't suggest they were going to lose.
no, the Caledonia jumped out to a 7 point lead, 13-20. Battle of three and some threes and a 3 point play. Had Leicester had 32, 23, sorry, 22. Other way round in the second quarter with Evie and Loving pushing Leicester ahead, and then Spielman 7 of 9 and answer points to make it 40-41. Perhaps the most noticeable thing of the first half, Leicester no fouls at all in the
Yeah,
entire
that
game.
was that was kind of bizarre. It's it's kind of linked to the lineup that Caledonia had out there.
Mm,
They got a jump shooting 5, a jump shooting 4, sorry, in Spielman, who's picking and popping. Well, doesn't really isn't really kind of a guy who's going to get his shoulder past you and get to the rim. He's a guy who's going to kind of post you up and shoot fadeaways or whatever, or shoot pick and pop threes. Same with Fraser Malcolm, same with Ragsdale. And Holland himself isn't a guy who's a high foul shot
mm,
operator. They're not going to throw the ball into Gordon much because he's only just got there and he looks more of a defensive kind of guy than necessarily a post-up guy. So how are they going to generate fouls? Quick
mm,
fouls are generated by quickness. Leicester are traditionally, certainly since Rob took over, God knows how long ago, the best team in the league and not giving up dumb fouls,
mm,
and just being where you need to be. And without wishing to bang on about it, I said about 3 weeks, 4 weeks ago, I saw the need for Caledonia to have a little bit more athleticism on the wing
mm,
for that very reason.
mm,
For the very reason that you have to have someone who can get to the rim and put a bit of pressure on the rim, to put pressure on the defense because they didn't really do that. They made shots and they played, and obviously Allen is going to draw fouls if he's in the game. I get that. Um, and Wright is probably the other guy who's
the
most
other
likely
guy
to
who
draw
goes to
fouls.
the rim.
Yeah.
Raxdale, by the way, before this game had only shot 5 free throws in the whole
Yeah,
season.
so they were built not to be fouled, if I can put
Yeah.
it that way, unless there's a team that's not going to foul.
And
So
in
yeah,
Caledonia only had 5 fouls in the first half, so it was
yeah, and look,
unusually low. People have asked me, well, has that ever happened before? I don't remember it ever happening before. I've looked back through my box sets, and there's some games from a long time ago where it says no fouls or 1 foul or 2 fouls, which I assume to be errors in the statistical matrix rather than
yeah,
reality. There was
yeah,
a few in recent years that I did check. Well, one Newcastle game actually. I don't know if you remember when they had the double header of the COVID year, and they had Sheffield playing somebody or other, and then Newcastle played London. Eagles only had 5 fouls in the entire game, but they had 2 in 1 half and 3 in the other. And there was another
I don't remember
uh,
it at all, but I wasn't coaching, so I don't remember. No.
there was another game recent in the last 4 or 5 years where somebody basically I looked up the ones with the lowest fouls that are still on live stats that I could look at, but all the ones I looked at where there were only 5 fouls, there seemed to be fouls in both halves, and at some point you give up looking, don't you?
Yeah, and I'm sure you do. It'll take a
Mm.
while for you, no doubt. Um, What I will say is, does we all hear about coaches and fans shouting, look at the foul count, look
Yeah,
at
yeah,
the
yeah.
foul count, right? And getting on the back of refs. So, when you go into half time and you've got no fouls against your team, do you I mean you go and knock on the ref's door and say, great job, here's a
Yeah, yeah.
free or something, does the opposite apply?
Yeah, yeah.
Because they caught up a bit in the foot in the third quarter.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, no, it's this stuff doesn't happen by chance.
Mm.
It's all they're all linked to personnel
Yeah, it is,
that's
yeah.
on the court,
Yeah.
and styles of play.
If Allen and Wright are playing, Leicester will have 5 fouls at half time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So Leicester out to a 59-48 lead early in the third quarter. It looked like they might get away at that
yeah,
point with Gordon, the one guy. He was the guy hoovering up all the fouls
yeah.
in foul trouble. But 7 points from Holland had it down to 62-61 after the opening play of the fourth quarter. In the end, it was battle down the stretch, made enough plays to keep Leicester 5 or 6 points ahead.
Yeah, Battle is really fascinating because he's a obviously he's a rookie, he's a true rookie, and he has a chance to be um, really good beyond this league, beyond this year, and also that puts him in MVP conversation because you're looking at London, and you don't other than Scott obviously,
Mm,
and if he's going to play enough. Um, but if they're sharing the minutes all around, but everybody else, Battle's probably one of the most impressive guys at the moment.
mm,
Not just because he can make a shot, not because he rises up and shoot the ball, but because he seems to like to seize the moment
mm,
in the fall. And there are times when he shoots it, he rises up and shoots it, you kind of know it's going in,
mm,
and that's a really big thing in these games because all these games are so close. Like all these games, the guys who are not scared to win the game and the guys ready to make plays are going to separate themselves very quickly from the league. I had that. I watched Akaru last year do exactly that.
yeah.
Win a number of games effectively because he had that self confidence and self belief that and will to win. And I see very similar stuff in Battle.
Mm,
So I mean, neither Caledonia will think we actually played pretty well for what we had.
mm.
And Leicester
I
will
thought it
think,
was one of those funny ones to quote you almost, Dave, is that +2 players was harder to deal with than -2
yeah,
players.
yeah, I think that's right. Plus two, I think that's why in the third quarter, it was Loving and Martin who was starting
Mm,
in the three guards. So that's kind of where his lineup's going to be going forward, I think.
mm,
And he didn't no more messing around because Sulaiman missed 3 or 4 shots early, if you remember, in this game, and Leicester didn't shoot the ball that well early on. So I think they got into that, and yeah, it's quite straightforward for Caledonia. Those guys know they're going to play, and
mm,
no one's going to complain about the shots they put up. And that it's not going to take the greatest of physical toll on them because,
mm,
as I say, they're not necessarily physical players. They're
mm,
skilled players.
mm,
Spielman's a skill player. Ragsdale's a skill player. Holland is a skill player. So they're not kind of head down merchants. They don't have to knock people out of the way. So they can do what they're going, they can do their thing. The difficulty is that I think they were down three with about 3 minutes to go. And from memory, they had a shot. I think maybe Fraser Malcolm had a shot to tie
mm.
it. And, it was one of those games whereby the only way I could see them winning was if they could get ahead not too long before the end.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
I thought if there had been 7 minutes, that would have been too early. But if they could have just kind of, Malcolm makes that three, maybe they get a stop, they go up two, then that play, Leicester's still a young team that might play a little bit with their heads, a couple of bad possessions, and suddenly the game can be over before you know
yeah,
it.
yeah,
That was
yeah.
the only way I could see them winning. And they never, as I say, they never quite got to parity. Parity was really important in that game for them.
Battle 30 points and 5 rebounds. Evie 17, Carey 10 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. Spielman 21 points and 8 rebounds, 9 of 14 shooting.
Yeah.
Ragsdale, as we say, 1 of 8 for 3, but still scored 19 points. Holland 5 of 6 shooting for 13 points. Yeah, 13. Manchester basketball 97, Cheshire Phoenix 91. First domestic start for
I did Cassie.
Adukasi.
Yeah, he's good.
Irvin's obviously still out. Shelton didn't play in this game. He's stressed. He obviously played in the
Europe.
European, the ENBL game in the midweek. Manchester a timeout after 2 minutes. They were only down 8-4, but then Nick scored 17 points in under 4 minutes to lead 20-34 and ended up with 36 in the quarter, which was their highest scoring quarter of the season.
Yeah. Firstly, Manchester. Yeah, I actually like Adu Takassi. He's British qualified. He's played in fits and starts, but he's something of a role player. He can finish at the rim. He knocks down the corner three. Um, he has a little bit of Adekoya, who played for Leicester and
Mm,
Sheffield, just a little bit. Not that he's not the same player at all, because he's a little bit more dominant, a little bit more dynamic offensively. But he never. I don't see him doing many dumb things, which is the first. That's a cut. That's talk about having your view of basketball spoiled for you by being involved. I judge people on not how good they are, but how many dumb things they do. And I don't see him making many mistakes, which is really important. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad move. I was a bit perplexed with the Shelton thing because you
mm,
thought that, Shelton's previously had good games against Cheshire because
mm,
you don't need the size against Cheshire, you need the athleticism, and he's been a difficult matchup sometimes for Cheshire. Certainly when he's at Newcastle, he had a couple of big games, and I think at Leicester as well. But he never played. Then you're on then you've got the push me pull you of Nicholson and his offense versus his defense.
Well, it's odd because they got three centres basically. One played 9 minutes, one didn't play, and the other one was in foul trouble.
Yeah, yeah. So they ended up, I suppose, going slower, going smaller and smaller,
Mm,
which ultimately was the right call because it won them the game.
mm,
What I will say about Cheshire is they have to be the best first quarter team in the league.
mm,
They are. It's almost like they get up to full speed faster than anybody else. There's
mm,
no finding your way in the game. I think the reason for that is primarily the psychology of, they are there to put the shot. They know what they have to do.
mm,
If Cameron's got an off the three dribble, an off the dribble three in the first 30 seconds from the foul line extended, he's going to shoot it,
mm,
And so they know they're in there to produce. They're not in there to kind of find their way into a game. So that means that they play with a degree of freedom, and sometimes they jump out on people, and they did on Manchester as well in this
mm,
game.
mm. They still led 46-65 after 3 minutes of the third quarter, but then Manchester scored 24 of the next 31 points to cut it to a 1 point game at 71-72.
Yeah, and this is a
And,
downside.
and and the downside of Cheshire is their third quarters are not great. That's their
Not
lowest scoring
great,
quarter.
and ultimately, it's arguably it's easier to make your threes in early when you've got your legs and you're not because they are playing at a scout pace.
Mm,
And when you're not making your threes, that means long rebounds. If they can rebound the basketball, they can come back the other way at you. So we've said it before, 20-point game in Cheshire is not the same as a 20-point game against London. It's
mm,
just the possessions are exponentially more. You might have maybe 20-25% more possessions in a Cheshire game. That
mm,
give you 20-25% more chance of coming back. And it tends to hit them more on the road, I think, than at home.
mm,
They've had some very close games on the road, Cheshire. Um, or games whereby they've been up big, the opposition's come back and they've either closed them out like they did at Bristol, or they've struggled to like they did in this game. So yeah, they're a bit like the England cricket team. They're going to keep going.
they are, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're going
It's
to
a
put
bit
up the.
baseball, is it?
Yeah, it's
I
a bit
think they,
basketball. I mean, you're up 20,
yeah,
maybe you want to take the eye out of the ball a little bit, but no,
yeah.
they're committed to the way that they play,
That's
and
who
they're
we are,
committed.
mate.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, well, and ultimately, what will matter will be the big games if they're in the trophy semi-final.
Mm,
If they can operate that into the trophy final and the cups and that and the playoffs,
mm,
because if that works and in those games, then all power to them.
mm.
So yeah, but in this game, the Manchester guys and Manchester guards got going in Jordan Johnson, who may well be there for all Smith and Jones have a lot of the ball in their hands. Johnson may well be their most efficient player.
Before we get to the end with
Mm.
Johnson, Cheshire had a score waved off with 2 minutes to go in the third quarter, and the ball seemed to hit the rim, and nobody spotted it. Well, the commentators did,
Yes,
but
that's
I
right. It did.
fielded it.
That's right. It was in yes.
But I thought there was a bit of yin and yang because I'm pretty sure Robinson was out of court when he scored the basket on the buzzer in that at the end of that quarter. About 2 minutes later, he inbounded it and he hadn't got back in court, and they gave him a
Yeah, I
free
know.
throw.
Yeah, I know. That's right.
But
Yeah.
there was also an incredible block at the end of the third quarter by Kyle Cleary as well.
Yes, he did.
Let's go to the end of the game. You talked about Johnson. 2:15 to go. A Johnson three gave Manchester their first lead of the game, 83. We'll just run through the plays. 2 minutes to go, Osaboyan fouls out. White makes three free throws, ties it at 88. 1:47 to go, Rideau fouls Johnson. He makes both free throws, 90 to 84. And then a bit helter skelter here. White misses the three. Cameron with a rebound. I thought he got fouled, if I'll be honest with you, but he
Yeah.
ends up with a hell ball on the floor. Cheshire ball from the end line with 8 seconds left on the shot clock. A bad pass, but it was knocked out of bounds for Manchester. And then Rideau misses the three, and somehow they come up with nothing.
Yeah, and they didn't shoot the three very well in the second half. I don't know if you got the numbers on it, but that's the thing with the engine. When the engine oil dries up, and then you're hoping you can get rebounds, but the game it's harder on the road to do that. Um, I just like Johnson. I like the way that he was the only guy in that game who seemed to be comfortable playing at his speed.
Mm,
Obviously, which is sorry, playing at a slower speed. Robinson and Co. They're happy playing at their speed,
yeah.
but playing at the game was able to slow down a little bit for him,
Mm,
and he's kind of had this kind of peripheral third guard role, for Manchester at times, and that was kind of his coming out. Really, he's had a couple of good games in Europe, but in this game, he just felt more comfortable for Manchester with his hands on the ball because they're still not getting much from inside.
mm. Well, Jones had the ball in his hands on the next play, slightly over dribbled it, turned it over, but
Mm.
Cameron misses the three in transition. It's still 90 to 88. A minute or so has gone by with no score. And then 26.5 to go. Johnson with a step back three, 93-88.
Yeah, a shot in that was a game shot.
Mm,
That was kind of shot in rhythm. Him getting to the spot that he wanted to get to, and stepping behind the screen, I think to his left, and just knocking it down. But it was a minimum of, everybody else is helter skelter. And
mm.
Manchester are a fast team. Also, Boyne is full of energy. His arms, he's got the ball in his hands. People moving around all over. Jones is one speed. Uh,
Johnson.
no, Jones, sorry,
Okay.
Max Jones, one speed fast, and Johnson is got is a little bit shiftier.
Mm,
And it'll be interesting to see how they move forward
mm,
with him because, I don't think playing 15, 16, 17 minutes is sustainable.
mm,
But then do you have to play the three guards together? Can you get away with that if you're Matt Orton? And, will there be shots? Will the other guys keep playing hard if those guys are monopolising the ball and getting all the shots? And then where does Cleary fit into that? Because Cleary's a guy who's shown he can get his own shot and he's got basically unlimited range as well.
mm,
So they've got some. Yeah, they could do with losing one or two
mm.
to use a Caledonia
Yeah.
thing. The
Yeah.
coach would be easier for the coach. I think if they had one or two to help them, they've got the European games, which means that there's a little bit less pressure on them
Mm,
to get the right minutes. And Cheshire, yeah, it's a sword. Yeah, you go, you live by it, die by it. They had 46 points halfway through the second quarter, and they ended up with 80,
91.
91. And as I say, they'll missed a ton of threes in the second
Mm,
half.
mm.
And sometimes that's just you've got to take that.
Manchester ended up with 32 points in the fourth quarter, which was their best quarter of the season. Ivan Cheshire hadn't had their best at the beginning. It was the biggest lead that's been lost since this time last year, the 19-point lead Cheshire had. Cheshire came from 23 down against Sheffield, if you remember this time
Yes, that's right.
last year. Cleary, 23.6 rebounds. Johnson, 21.7 rebounds, 7 assists.
Mm.
Jones, 15 points, although 4 of 18 shooting.
Mm.
Um, Cameron, 17.6 rebounds. White, 4 of 8 for 3, 17 points. Robinson, 12, although 3 of 12 shooting. Newcastle Eagles, 92. Surrey 89 is 89.
Hey.
Way. Still no Anthony or Ward Hibbert, obviously. Camway was back. Kuntz is still out. I feel like today I've spent more time talking about who is
Yeah.
and isn't playing than usual. I don't know if it is that way. It feels that way. Scores were tied 13 each midway through the first quarter, but a 14-3 finish to the quarter and Eagles 27-16 ahead.
Players nowadays, Dan, are soft.
Mm.
Um, let me say that. Two things, just on the numerical side of it, the 89 is getting 89.
Mm.
I did forget, I was rather annoyed after last week's podcast that I had forgotten to point out what precipitated Sheffield's comeback in the fourth quarter against Newcastle last week.
Not 6-7.
Well,
So that is it. You've not gone into that, have you, Dave?
what was the number of the duck that won Chuck a Duck, Dan?
I don't know.
Y67.
There we go. Perfect.
At Newcastle, at the Virgin Motors Arena, which has a
Yeah.
probably a higher proportion of children within the,
Yeah, yeah,
you know, so the whole everybody in the north and the south
yeah.
stands. It was a cacophony
Yeah.
of
Six seven, six
absolute
seven.
hilarity. God,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Grinch come a bit early.
yeah.
Anyway, so
Well,
yes,
in Leicester, they called a timeout. Johnny called a timeout when
yeah,
they were on 67. That just gave the kids even more chance to
yeah.
do it.
So anyway, yeah. So that's hopefully we're moving past that particular. Um, so yeah, sorry, Newcastle. Yeah, interesting game. Because Newcastle had to win this game. Sorry, coming off two away wins, so probably not as desperate to win this game. But Newcastle lost 8 in a row, albeit two European games that really they weren't close to, given the level of the opposition. But still 6 in a row, and out of those six, they lost probably four, maybe five were winnable games that they were in the fourth quarter. Um, and ultimately, without disrespecting Surrey, if you're not going to beat Surrey at home in that situation where you've lost that many games in a row, then you're not getting London in your gym, you've not got Bristol in your gym, you've not got a team of Cheshire who are flying. So they had to win that game. Started off quite slowly. Did Newcastle. Surrey, I thought, left quite a lot out there in this game. Missed quite a number of foul shots, missed some open looks. Um, Newcastle got into a rhythm, as you say, around the second quarter. I thought, sorry to be the broken record, but I thought Defoe was really critical in this game for them. Um, Came in, made some shots, and basically anchored the defense, and they couldn't really get a stop without him. Certainly over the first three quarters, you just got the impression of two teams playing the game. Newcastle playing with a little bit more urgency, and Newcastle's ball movement and shooting, and they've got athleticism on the wing, was pretty good for three quarters. Sorry, they were at that. When Lloyd, I think Ling struggled in this game. He had a good game last week. He struggled in this game. When Lloyd goes to Nwankwo when they're down 17 with 2 minutes to go in the third quarter, you kind of know that's his last throw of the dice. He's put his
They obviously lost Quealy as well in the first
they
quarter. He
lost
sort of
really.
slipped when he was fouled, slow back to his feet, played the rest of the quarter, but never came back after that.
Yeah, against that, Nadas was outstanding.
Mm,
And Newcastle's first quarter defense was actually quite reasonable. Their second quarter defense was abominable.
mm,
In relation to the lack of respect for some of the guys who've proven they can play. And Nadas in particular, they didn't really want to try to guard him. I think there was a miscommunication on Andrew going under a screen on Andrew Lawrence
mm,
3. And every time Newcastle got into rotation, really the togetherness wasn't really there. And Surrey scored like 30 odd points in the second quarter.
Small had 6 in a 14-6 run, which helped them cut it back to 33-35. Eagles was 7 up at half time. Mid-third quarter, Clark had 5 in a 10-0 run. They were back out to 17 at 79-62. And then the offense kind of dried up a little bit for Newcastle in the fourth quarter.
Very kind.
Surrey reeled them back in.
You're very kind. You really. The fourth, it's difficult to feel. I mean, there was, firstly, again, it's the same against Sheffield. I think I told you they were up maybe 13 in the end of the third quarter, and I said, that's when Chapman went out, and
Mm,
you had to win those minutes. And if you win those next 4 minutes, the game is done. Once it's 20 points with 8 minutes to go, it's basically done. And they failed, and the same again in the around the third quarter break in this game. They gave Surrey life. And then the fourth quarter was like watching kind of paralysis basketball.
mm,
Newcastle had, I think, made four field goals. One was Okafor in the post early on. Another one, Hammond made a three, and Hammond made a jump shot late on. But in the meantime, they slowed the game down. They didn't have anybody to get in the paint. They were all looking at each other like, "Ah, we got this," but none of them wanted to make a play.
Mm,
Um, I thought outside of Hammond, who then got his fourth foul and sat down with 7 minutes to go,
mm,
I thought there didn't seem to be any of the Newcastle guys who really wanted that moment.
mm,
Which is worrying. It's not a question of how good they are, how talented they are, because they had 80 points through three quarters. They can play and they can score. The question is who's got the cojones to step up and win the game when it matters and
mm,
say we're not going to lose. And when it's a bigger question when you've lost seven in a row,
mm,
or six in a row, because at that point your professional pride should be kicking in. You're at the point that we ain't losing. I'm going to find a way of making it work, and they didn't, and they got lucky in the fourth quarter. I thought Surrey left some points out there. There was they had chances to go into the lead, and they got run. They got scores off Newcastle's poor offense in transition. And I mean, at one point, I think Cholovinska's got a layup off a Newcastle foul shot,
mm.
miss, at the other end. And there was a sense of not dread, but there was a bit of concern in the arena. It was one of those, if it was a football match, the crowd would be murmuring.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
You know exactly what I mean. And you were just waiting for somebody and somebody to step up and make a play. Jack eventually made a three, which kind of nearly got them home. But even then, they tried to conspire to lose.
So let's just run through the last couple of plays. So Lilly made his first three of the game with 147 to go, 89-87.
That was on
Then,
Clark. That was on Clark attempting to get a steal, dive for a
yeah,
steal.
dive for a
You
steal.
can't be diving for a steal with 2 minutes to go in the game.
Mm.
Sorry.
Uh, then the Jack three you just mentioned, 92-87, 129 to go. There was essentially shot clock violations at both ends of the floor. Both teams lost the ball just before the buzzer, but it was right at 24 seconds.
Just on that, there was an absolute horrendous screw up at the end of the second quarter in this game with the table when Clark actually, to be fair to him, made a great play. He shot a three with 29 seconds to go, made a three at the top and a 2 for 1.
Mm,
And I'm reliably informed that that shot was recorded at 28.2 seconds.
mm,
Yeah, 4 seconds later, the shot clock's turned off as
mm,
Surrey's bringing the basketball up the court. And that's and it wasn't a question of them letting the ball roll
mm.
because it was on initially. So the kind of the 2 for 1 was knocked off. But anyway, yeah, go on. So I wasn't happy about that.
No.
I said a few
So
things about that. So
at the end of that, then Small gets a putback on the break to make it 92-89, but they've lost basically a minute in that whole process, so it's
yeah,
34.6. No foul, so the Eagles looking to run the clock. Small knocks the ball out of bounds with 14.3 seconds to go, 3.7 on the shot clock. On the inbound, Clark throws it straight to Small, who runs the length of the floor, but Defoe, the
yeah,
old vet,
he's
came
back.
back and not fouling as well, put him off, didn't foul, got the rebound, and then I'm guessing that Clark must have misread the clock or something because he just threw the ball down court and it went out of bounds with 3 seconds left.
Yeah, Kua kind of bemused silence from the arena. What 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 just all happened there? We've just thrown the ball away. They missed the layup. Surrey's trying not to win either. Now you're giving them the ball back. Great play by Mitch Clark if there's 3 seconds left when he throws it.
Yeah, yeah.
Great.
Not
Yeah,
with 3 seconds when
not
it's
with
gone out of
six.
bounds.
Not with six. And it was kind of an example. Even the offense before that, when Newcastle had got the ball on the baseline, they kind of got lucky. They threw the ball to Maceo Jack and said, "Make something happen."
Mm,
They never got an advantage in that offense at all. And then they ran an out of bounds play whereby um, I'm not quite sure who Clark was throwing it to, but nobody got open. As you say, if Defoe hadn't been, and he's playing at the end of the game, which
mm,
says it all really, because I don't think Mark really wants him to be playing them having that degree of responsibility and involvement in the game. But if he doesn't get back and just get there in small misses, then that's a 1 point game, and Newcastle would have found a way to lose.
mm.
In the end, they kind of held on
Yeah.
in the
So there
most.
was a time out the advance ball. I don't think they'd set up properly before the ball was given to the inbound, or they were confused. It didn't look right. Whatever it was, it didn't quite look right, and ended up with a tough corner three for Polite, which was
Wasn't I
pretty
mean, to
short.
be fair, he's got Long in front of him, and that's right in front of me. And Long is Long when he's in the
Yeah.
corner, and he's got his hand up. He's probably the right guy to defend that. And Polite would have been a Hail Mary shot to make it. So sorry, didn't cover themselves in glory. I say, sorry, let this drop. Sorry, had this game
mm,
because there was blood in the water with Newcastle in this
mm.
game in the fourth quarter, and Newcastle they got far enough ahead whereby they were able to withstand it. But as I say, it was one of those, you're 5-0 up with 20 minutes to go, and it's 5-4 at the end.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the other team's got the ball and is flying at you, and yeah, I mean there was. Yeah, I'm less high on Newcastle's defense than I was because some of the defensive breakdowns in this game and subsequently on Sunday early on um, were really disconcerting. They were too simple. It was too simple. And Surrey didn't take advantage of all of them at all. As you say, Lily never really got going in this game. Um, but Cholovinskis was excellent.
Mm,
And Surrey kept playing and they're a solid team.
mm. Hammond, 6 of 9 for 3 for 20 points. Okafor, 4 of 12 shooting for 17 points. Clark, Taylor, Jack all had 10. Taylor also had 8 rebounds and nine
Yeah,
assists.
you can kind of see why happened. Taylor never scored in the fourth quarter. That kind of disappointed me a little bit. And he came out the game with 2 minutes to go. Newcastle have this thing going with Clark is actually their best plus minus guy. He makes everybody else better, but he's struggling to finish.
Mm,
Struggling to finish. His shooting percentages are difficult, to have on the court, despite the fact everybody else is better when he is on the court. Taylor is a far more gifted offensive player, but he has to find the right times to score, and they need him to step up in the fourth quarter, and he really didn't in this game. And they're all kind of looking at each other a little bit as if everything's all right, and I'm wanting to go in there and shout out that everything is not all right. Stop being so bloody cool about all of this. Everything is not all right.
mm,
Um, so yeah, so they've got kind of a push me pull you thing with Clark and Taylor going. I like Clark a lot. I like this game. I think he's a winning player, but he can't be shooting. He shot 40% from three in Reading. He shot 42% from three in Australia. SLB is at 16 or 17%. That
mm,
might be at different levels. You're not getting the same looks, but it's not sustainable. Yeah, sorry, I interrupted you.
mm. Polite, 20 points and 9 assists. Jolovinskas, 3 of 4 from three, 16 points, 14 of them in the first half. Small, 15 points, 18
18
rebounds,
rebounds, yeah.
and 4 assists.
Yeah,
Crazy.
Small's a guy you don't actually, he's long, so you don't actually notice his impact on the game. It's a quiet impact. I'm not saying that negatively,
Mm,
but he does make plays. He blocked a foul in the fourth quarter on the turnaround, about 3 minutes to go.
mm,
He does get second shots for you. What I was a bit disappointed was that, Newcastle didn't make him shoot the ball. There was once in the second quarter where the ball rotated out of a double team on the wing. It rotated to him at the top, and somebody ran towards him like he was the second coming of, Stephen Curry, and
mm,
left Andrew Lawrence wide open on the wing.
mm,
It's like, he shoots it. Lawrence, you stay with.
mm.
It's like this isn't rocket science. So, but he's quite impactful. The numbers surprised me a little bit at the end, but when I looked back at the game, I thought about the game. Actually, they didn't because Lloyd plays in quite a lot of minutes. And he's a genuine 6'7", 6'8" with long arms.
Sunday, stick with the Eagles. London Lions 95, Newcastle Eagles 82. Randall and Solowadi out of this game. Scott was back. Okafor and Defoe didn't play. Smith was back on the court for Newcastle. Eagles very much feeling the regression to the mean here as London made 5 3-pointers in the first 5 minutes. They were 7 of 8 in the first quarter. The points off the bench were back as well for the Lions, and they were 16 points ahead before the end of the first quarter.
Yeah, well, Sabonis made a comment in the interview beforehand. It's worth listening to because he said it 2 or 3 times. Talked about the meeting they had yesterday, and the film that we watched.
Mm,
And that's kind of when I say it's a course corrector as a coach, that's great.
mm,
Because all these guys who think they're great,
mm,
not overtly, they're not arrogant or hubristic, but in their own mind, we got it, we're good, we're
mm.
8-0, we're winning
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
These
yeah,
guys can't do it. Then you score 54 points at Bristol, and the coach sits you down and gives you a few and shows you the video, and you can't hide.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nowhere you can go. You can just sit there and take it. And um, so he talked about that a couple of times, and I mean that result for the Bristol win for them on Friday night was awful for both. It was awful for Newcastle and very good for Cheshire.
Mm,
that result. So yeah, but secondly though, it's not just about oh they're more focused, albeit they were more focused. Um, there's other things. Now, why does Amina Darmo get his two open threes early on in the corner? Because Newcastle are sending a double team at Joel Scott.
mm,
And where was Joel Scott? He wasn't there. So they
mm,
said they didn't. Joel Scott is bending the defense because
mm,
already Mark knows he hasn't got Okafor who can maybe body him up. He hasn't got Darius. He's got Canways having to guard the big guy, Williams, or Price, whoever was in the game, which means, he's having to have Cole Long guard Joel Scott. Well, Cole Long is a lot of things. He's a very solid defender in a lot of areas, but he's not the guy to match up with, with Joel Scott putting his
mm,
shoulder in again. So, and Mark knows he's going to be playing lots of minutes. So then they send a double. But once you send a double, you've got to rotate out of it.
mm.
Newcastle didn't rotate out of it. Now you might think, well, we'll give Amin Adamo a three because he's not a great shooter, but he's a guy who, if you remember the GB game in Holland where we
Yeah,
need,
yeah, yeah,
he's the only guy who could make a three. He was
yeah.
four,
He was. Yeah.
and on top of that, he's been through a little bit of a rough trot, playing the point, playing out of position a little bit. So he got a bit of a confidence, and he's got that focus back from what happened. He's taking it personally, and those guys aren't going to miss. So bang, suddenly everything becomes easier because Scott's in the game, and then Newcastle's rotational defense was not good. In fact, in the first half, it went beyond not good. It went to execrable. It wasn't. I mean, they gave up 64 points. They didn't. Their transition defense wasn't good. Um, just a lot of in London, it always looks worse when the opposition make a lot of shots.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's it. Your defense, it always looks better. You might think we play good defense because they miss shots. Well, it doesn't mean you have. But there was a little bit too much. It was a little bit too easy for London in the first half. Against that, Newcastle's offense was kind of all right. You
Mm,
know, they struggled a bit. Clark gets. I've mentioned Clark before. Clark gets a rough whistle. There's 3 or 4 games this year. He's had a really rough whistle. He got three fouls early in this game. I mean, his third one, he literally stood there when a truck ran him over. His second one was, I think, a phantom foul on a 3-point shot that Goodwin had in the corner as well. Because I watched it back twice, and I'm pretty good now in figuring out which players are the bullshit artists in relation to what they say, which in relation to the looks they give the refs and which ones aren't.
mm,
So he gets, so that went right. But so he was out of the game. That was a struggle for Newcastle. And defensively they just ripped apart. And that kind of was the game,
mm.
albeit um
Yeah, I watched this game until Cheshire started. I saw there was a 9-0 run in the fourth quarter, Dave. I haven't watched it back. Was that a fake comeback or was there a real
well,
win? I don't
wasn't
know.
it? I mean, it actually wasn't. It wasn't because by the time it got to 80-73, London had scored 16 points in 15 minutes.
Mm,
And he'd rotated all his guys, and he had his starting five on the court for probably the last 4 or 5 of those minutes. So he
mm,
had Scott, Williams, all those guys, Rye, etc. And London were a little bit. They obviously led up
mm,
in their minds, but Newcastle were throwing a few things at them. They were doubling a little bit. Hammond made a couple of, Hammond's a high level shooter. He made a couple of really tough threes, and it was almost like that again. You're playing two guys down,
mm.
nobody else to play. Just go play.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, did I think the reason I think there was a just with the body language of the coach of London's coach and the players, I had a vague hope
Mm,
that it could be continued. But I think Newcastle got to 7 and they had the ball,
yeah.
and they have a couple of bad offenses. And again, they have this, you can't be going to a Clark Canway pick and roll if you're up 7, if you're down 7, you need a basket,
Mm,
You've got, it's when they don't play with pace and they don't get into their stuff and the ball doesn't go where it's meant to go. They don't have much, to kind of bail out of dead plays,
mm,
to somebody get you something like Cheshire, give Robinson the ball. And once London re-established that, and it was a little bit like the Fraser Malcolm shot, getting it back to zero.
mm,
If Newcastle, if I think Hammond had the chance to get the ball in a fast break on the wing, and they didn't get it to him. And he gets the ball, there, he makes a shot, and maybe it's a 4-point game, and then
mm,
bets are off. There's a chance, you never know. But so it wasn't fakeish. It was a proper comeback, but it wasn't one which really gave them that much lasting chance of
mm.
success.
And then London scored the next 7 points to lead 87-73 and finish it off.
Yeah, and they didn't do it, and that's the thing, they didn't do it straight away. Newcastle had
Mm,
a couple of possessions,
mm,
but what I think they maybe gave up a little bit of transition or something like that as well. Um, so yeah, it was kind of a weird game because with Okafor not playing, Defoe not playing, you kind of figured that Newcastle had kind of written it off almost.
mm,
Um, and you look at the minutes, Long played 38 minutes, Jack played 37 minutes. None of the London guys are playing more than, 23, 24 minutes. Um, but there's yeah, there's a team in the Eagles. I'm just not sure when we're going to actually see it.
mm.
And London, yeah, did exactly what they're meant to do.
Mm.
Played. But as I say, having Joe Scott there is, you had what do you have 20 in this game without anybody really noticing. 18, something like
16,
that.
16,
16, only
16.
16.
Mm,
But it was an easy 16.
mm.
Um, and yeah, yeah.
Adamu 18, Scott 16, Williams and McGusty 12 each. So 12 of 22 from 3 point range, slight difference from Friday. Taylor 6 of 9, including 5 of 7 for 3 for 20 points. Jack 17 and Hammond 16.
Yeah, quite entertaining. Mark Clark on on the commentary spent the most of the highlighted Taylor before the game. He said the big thing about him is he going to be able to knock down the shot? And he knocked down 5, and Mark's like, oh, I think I need to stop talking before the game. Yeah. But the thing with that's kind of the frustrating thing with Newcastle. They've got some talented guys there now. Should be getting a little bit closer to putting it together now. And the question isn't really can they play 3 quarters. The question is can their defense hold up and can they score in the fourth quarter?
So my stat, let me just go to my little thing that I did earlier. London obviously scored 54 points on Friday in Bristol, and they had 64
Oh, half time.
at half time today. Sorry, on Sunday. So that in the live stats era was the 14th time, surprisingly enough, that a team has scored more points in the half of a game following the previous game, if that makes sense. The
Oh wow.
last time it happened was Plymouth, where they scored 60 in a game, but then they played Wales, so they had
That
70
doesn't count.
at halftime. That was 22. And the time before that was 2019. Again, Plymouth, where they'd scored 66 points and then ended up scoring 70 at halftime against whatever version
Well,
of Surrey.
Gibraltar.
Surrey that was. It
Gibraltar.
wasn't
No?
Gibraltar, no. It
Mm.
was whichever version of Surrey it was at the time. And as we're about to move into the Cheshire game,
Yeah.
um, Bristol obviously gave up 59 points in the first half, having only conceded uh, 54 in the game before, and that was the 14th time that's happened in the live stats area. The last time was again involving Plymouth in January 23, where they were playing Cheshire, and they'd had 52 previously, 52 against, and then scored 59. There's some random ones in this one. I think the best one was Leicester in 2009, where they'd conceded 38 points the week before against London and gave up 41 at half time, which isn't that bad, but obviously it comes into this
That's
stuff.
London Capital, no doubt.
Yeah, London Capital. Yeah,
Yeah,
London
London
Capital.
Capital. Yeah, they weren't very
Yeah,
good.
yeah. There
Yeah.
was another one
My
where
first coaching win against them.
Yeah, there was another one where Leicester had conceded in 2016 39 points. I think it was Leeds. Can't remember.
Yeah.
And then gave up 47. There's a few. There was also 72. Uh, but that was Edinburgh Kings giving up 73
Yeah.
against
Trophy
Newcastle,
game for
so it
them.
doesn't really count. But a bit of fun to look up nonetheless. Uh,
Absolutely.
so let's come to Cheshire Phoenix, 111, Bristol Flyers 84. Robinson into the starters and
Yeah.
Rideau off the bench here. But Brenchley, Cameron, Diggins, they scored the first 7 points of the game. They had a 14-4 lead. And then Damari Lindo came into the game like a man whose whole family was sitting on on the sofa on sidelines and
Is that
knocking down
right?
shots all over the place. 23-8 after
Is
seven
that
minutes.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
His family was there.
His mum and dad were there. Yeah.
Well, it was
So,
either that or it was his birthday.
yeah,
But it was one of the two.
yeah.
There's something about players, but and again, it's almost inexplicable to the average fan. You know, who thinks,
Mm,
well, no, players are players, and you're going to do your best every game,
mm,
and you do. But
mm.
if you're living away from home, you've got your folks there, it just adds a degree of
Mm.
it's kind of the opposite of the guys who have got a ticket booked to fly back for Christmas the day after.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
The mindset is it's focus versus distraction.
mm.
And so much of the time, certainly when I was involved, was focusing on focus and avoiding distraction.
Yeah,
It's anything you can do to avoid, and that's an individual player. That's not a team thing. That's individual players figuring out individual players what's going on. That makes a lot of sense. And albeit it's tough with Cheshire because they are playing like 9 or 10 guys quite regularly. So you don't know what some of these guys would do if they had, someone like Lindo who's been coming off the bench,
yeah,
being quite impactful. You don't know if he was playing starters minutes. You don't know what level of impactful he would actually be.
Well,
He might,
it's a bit like the Holden thing last year. Holden suddenly dominated in stats, and yet he hadn't played that much the year before because the minutes
oh,
weren't there for him. And
yeah,
it was like, well, it wasn't that he couldn't do it; it's just there weren't the minutes for him because of the team
opportunity.
that they had.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the opportunity. So yeah, but I mean, the one thing I thought about Cheshire in this game was the threes that they got were, I mean, they got 43 threes in this
mm.
game. And I'm quite sure Bristol came in thinking, man, we had London at 3 of 29 waiting
Yeah,
for the
yeah,
defense.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, but the danger with that, and this is the Forrester maxim about momentum being a massive lie.
Mm,
Momentum between games is just a massive, massive lie. Because
mm,
if it was, then London wouldn't have made a shot in the first quarter against Newcastle.
yeah,
Bristol would have held Cheshire to 55. And it
mm,
doesn't happen like that. It's the
mm,
opposite. You have a result if you focus on what you didn't do. And the worst thing for coaches is players who think they've accomplished lots.
yeah, yeah,
The coach is thinking, yeah, actually, yeah, they were 3 of 29, but then you go back and watch the video footage and actually, 15 of them were wide open.
yeah, yeah.
We had a game against, I'll tell the story, we had a game against Mersey Tigers when Tony G was there before they went bust that season. And it was Nate Rankin was playing for them. It was a two-legged semi-final, I think. I can't remember. We played the first leg at Sports Central. And we held like Nate to 7 points.
Mm.
And I came out thinking, we did a great job there. We chased Nate around. We won the game by about 8. We got hammered in the second leg, but had some injuries. We did a great job. And
23, I think it was in the
yeah,
second
yeah,
leg. Yeah,
we got absolutely hammered. But I think Trey broke his foot and
yeah.
Joe did whatever. I remember going home on the bus was like, I'll stop at the hospital. It's one of those
Mm,
things. But anyway, they were better than us. Yeah, but that first game, well, it's a great job there. Nate's 2 of 11, man. We chased him around. Then we watched the tape.
mm,
Nate just missed.
mm.
Sorry, Nate just missed. I was like, oh, okay. But now you've got to try and persuade, you've got to say to the players, actually, we can't play defense like that. And they're all saying, well, hang on, he was 2 of 11.
Yeah,
Why not?
yeah,
So you've
yeah,
got that thing with Bristol, we haven't the 3-20, and it's a quick turnaround for Bristol as well.
mm,
So then you run into the buzz, so that is Cheshire. But the
mm,
threes that they were got down were good threes.
mm,
They get corner threes
mm,
and they shoot them. They get transition threes and they get threes where the ball touches the paint.
mm,
And the three things that they are really, you can see that they shoot very, very few mid-range shots.
mm,
They're a very modern team in that way. Brenchley is being sneaky good.
mm,
Sneaky good. And what I mean is that he's not the guy you notice the most, but he's
mm,
there. And he's consistent. You have to like Cameron's game because he
mm.
helps in a number of different ways with
I
sometimes.
think if you're playing against him, you probably don't like his game. I think he's annoying coming in and getting those
Why I
rebounds,
like
getting
it. That's why
hustle plays and whatever. He's great if he's on your team, but
that's
if
why I
he's
like
on
his
the,
game, Dan.
yeah, 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 yeah,
I'm not being funny, if you're going
yeah,
to sign a standstill shooter, well, I'm sure there are better ones,
yeah,
but um, but the mentality he plays with,
yeah,
it's like that's why I like Clark, this
yeah.
Antipodean mentality. You
Plays
know,
hard every play. That's
you
the
see it,
thing.
you
It's
see it
there
in
every
him,
play.
that it's you're there, and and Diggins is really stepped in as well. So they have a ton of weapons, but what you cannot do is and Bristol are playing the third game in 5 days. And whilst I'm not willing to concede that Bristol to Cheshire is a particularly long ride, thank you very much. Having done very much longer rides than that. It's
Yeah.
still the third game in 5 days. It's against you play against a German team, BBL team. You play against London,
Mm,
who are a Eurocup team, and then you've got to go up there and play Cheshire at the end of that. That's pretty close to a scheduled loss.
mm,
Particularly as Sheffield or Cheshire are coming off a win, and their defense never got close. I remember watching. There was a play in the must have been in the first half 'cause it was down at the far end, and Owen McCormack made the least committed effort to close out someone who was I can't remember which of the Cheshire shooters it was,
mm,
but who was kind of, it may have been Skylar, maybe, can't remember, it might have been Diggins, but on the wing, he kind of moved towards him with his hand up, and then when the shot went in, kind of looked over at the coach and kind of went, what am I thinking? Oh,
mm,
that's not going to get it done. So I watched it back.
mm,
But that's fatigue. That's mental fatigue and physical fatigue. It's not because he doesn't want to do that. It's just because that those little things make a big difference to that game. And then the score is, and then the fascinating thing about Cheshire is as the game gets into the fourth quarter, um, and it's that England cricket mentality again. They are still jacking up shots within
yeah,
five.
yeah.
Yeah, they're up 25, and there is no thought about playing conservatively. There's no thought about um, running things down. So you get to the point whereby at 18 points at the end of the third quarter, I'm thinking, well, Bristol got running them here, because of the speed that Cheshire are playing at. But that's what they are. I thought that was really, really interesting to watch that because they are really it's so much. It's so tough to describe Cheshire. They are random, but they are also patterned.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that you
Yeah,
think those two
yeah,
things were utterly contradictory.
yeah, yeah,
They shot 40. I mean, in this game, they shot 43 threes,
yeah,
right? And made 20 of them fine. But even at
yeah.
it's always, I always look at the number that you shoot, not the number that you make.
Mm,
Now, they have the same amount, approximately the same amount of foul shots as Bristol, maybe one different.
yeah,
Not that many more possessions.
yeah,
Yet on their shots, they had 15 more points if they make their shots than Bristol did because they
yeah,
shot
yeah.
15 more threes.
15 more threes. Yeah, Bristol were 9 of 28.
So that's literally in Bristol, and they're shooting similar amount of field goals. So that's given them a massive inbuilt advantage,
Yeah,
inbuilt kind of help to winning if they're getting good threes. If they're getting
yeah.
bad threes, like if their legs aren't quite there, like they were Manchester in the second half, and they weren't getting the touching off the paint, and the opposition are defending them a bit better, so be it. But whilst that ball is flying to the corner or coming up in transition, and they're knocking down threes, the numbers are in their favour, the energy's in their favour, and they did exactly what you meant to do against a tired team in the third game in
Mm,
5 days,
mm.
and they didn't stop. The other thing is, I'm looking for. I mean, if you remember the first game Bristol Cheshire played, Holden was way too
Yeah, yeah.
uptight. In this game, he dialed it right back. He probably dialed it too far back.
Mm,
He wasn't as aggressive in this game, but again, it's a game in 5 days. So it's a nice little subplot that we don't get that many games. We don't get that many teams who sign players from other teams.
mm.
And
No.
there really aren't that many players going back to kind of where they've been.
Mm.
Um, in fact, I can't think of. Obviously, you've got Ethan
Well,
Wright in Leicester, Ethan
it's
Wright in Glasgow,
yeah.
and
I suppose you haven't got the ones of Holden's sort of mentality. You
yeah,
sort of have a Josh Ward Hibbert or even Ethan Wright,
yeah,
where I mean he's not obviously played Leicester because he didn't play the game, but you don't feel like he's going to go, oh, I'm going to stick it to them. Whereas you get that vibe from Holden that he
yeah, you
wants
do.
to stick it to
Yeah,
them.
and it's different. It becomes what you find is it becomes more relevant if you're in your first year out.
Mm.
So if you've gone to a new club and you're in your first year out,
Yeah, yeah,
if you're like a water bit and you're in Newcastle over 3 years,
yeah,
well,
yeah,
it's not
yeah,
quite the same. You,
yeah.
you, you you don't have that.
But
Um,
even like when he left Leicester and went to London, he had some great games against Leicester, by the way.
yeah,
But
that's
you
true.
didn't get the feel like he was
But yeah,
trying
it's
to do
good.
that,
Yeah.
other than trying to win the game. And the same when he went to Newcastle and going back to London, it was the same.
Yeah, that's true. And so yeah, so that kind of having that kind of um, excitable personality in the
Mm,
exciting environment. So he's just got to try and regulate that. But I mean, I think it's a tough one because if you told Andreas that you'll compete with a German BBL team, got beat by 15, but competed,
mm,
you'll beat London, you'll lose to Cheshire. You might have took that
mm.
because you're looking at that schedule coming up and you're thinking, Jesus,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, and we can't underestimate, and fans do because all the fans see is what's in front of them. You
Mm,
can't underestimate rest disadvantage.
mm.
home game. You can't underestimate the impact of travel. You can't. Um, what it does is it elevates games that go against the head.
Mm,
So if you get a win against the head, you get a win where one that you're not meant to win. It makes us even, that it kind of gives you a sign that hang on, this team's for real. But there are going to be games whereby, particularly with half the teams playing in Europe and half the teams not, whereby there is going to be a little bit of rest disadvantage. And Cheshire is a perfect team to take advantage of that.
yeah, yeah, and they did.
Yeah.
Nothing really to say after that. 23-8 and kept on going.
Be interesting
Lindo,
to see what happens with Rideau and Robinson going forward, won't it?
yeah, 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 definitely.
Because that's a ballsy move, to take Rideau out and to put Robinson in the starting lineup. Um, because there's a lot, because when you play with the amount of emotion that Cheshire do, having a lot of emotion can be good, but it can turn negative as well.
Mm,
If everybody's up and down, you see with the time scale is upset. So controlling that is Ben's biggest task.
mm,
And to do that, you know, to a certain degree, normally what coaches will try and do during the course of a season is have a pecking order so people understand their roles. And at the moment, with Rideau and Robinson, they play together, they play apart, but there isn't. You wouldn't say there's a pecking order there. Some games it's Rideau, some games it's Robinson.
mm,
So and Robinson's a guy who's he's won basically everywhere he went. He won in college. So you probably think that he's got the kind of the mentality, which is it don't bother me.
mm,
Whatever you want, coach. That's what I see in him anyway.
mm.
So no, we'll see where that goes with everybody else.
Lindo, 9 of 11, tied his career best in makes of threes, although he was 6 of 8 in the game in college and he was 6 of 7 here, and had his career best of 28 points. 27 he got in college was his career
20
high.
odd minutes. And it's his
Yeah,
energy. His
yeah,
energy,
yeah.
if he knocks down shots for Cheshire, that's a bonus. But the energy he's playing with, obviously playing with in front of his
Mm,
folks, but the energy he's playing with really means there's no let up.
mm,
It's a big pickup when he
mm.
plays like that, obviously.
Robinson, 16 points, 9 assists. Diggins and Brenchley, 14 points each. It bears repeating 20 of 43
Mm.
from 3 point range. That is the third most made threes by a team in a game in the live stats era, which basically means ever because people did not shoot 43s
Mm.
in 1990. The record is still held by London from March 22 with 23. Cheshire had a 21 against Nottingham in January 93. It's the ninth time somebody has got 20 or more. And just to underline the point I just made, 6 of the 9 have been in the 2020s.
Yeah. And 43 threes, that's one every 53 seconds.
Mm. It's quite incredible, really.
If you think about that.
When you actually think about it, I mean, obviously, you and I are of the vintage, Dave, where
Yeah.
teams had 30-second shot clock and 30-second reset on
Yeah.
a on
Yeah.
on a missed shot. So you could miss a shot and take a minute out of the game
Yeah, that's
for
right.
one shot, and they're managing to get 43 3-pointers up. Never mind the twos and the ones in a 40-minute game. It's quite incredible,
Oh, well, I
really.
would say it's the quality of their shot. They're getting good
Yeah, yeah,
shot.
yeah.
These aren't just jacking shot. There are times where there's times that probably where like anybody, any team where the shot will quality will drop a little bit. But against Bristol, they got the shots they wanted. They got in the
Mm,
lane. They got to spot the corner. They got great shots, and
mm,
the players are good enough and confident enough to shoot them, knock
mm,
them down.
mm. Joe Anderson was 17. Joachim 13. They were, as I say, 9 of 28 from three, 29 of 70 from the floor. So that brings us to the end of the games. I'll just quickly run through the table. London 9-1 at the top. Bristol and Sheffield both
Oh,
7. Eh? And one,
one.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Bristol and Sheffield both 7-4. Cheshire then 6-6. Manchester 4-4. Leicester 4-5. Surrey 3-4. Newcastle 3-7, and Caledonia 2-10.
Mm, yeah, yeah.
Just looking. There's only London above 500 on the road. Bristol are now 3-3 at 500, but there's oh no, sorry, two and
Sorry,
one. Sorry, two
two
and
one.
one.
Yeah,
But they're one
they
and
haven't
three
played
at
that many
home.
games.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think there's some trophy games. There's obviously a break now, and then there's some trophy games as
Mm,
well to be played kind of around this period, so the league should slow down a little bit. It's probably a realistically fair reflection of where the teams are at.
mm,
Um, Certainly, as I say, Caledonia, they have to make a lot of shots to win a game.
mm,
Um, Newcastle need to integrate the players that they've got and they decide if this is going to be their team going forward. Because as you say, Anthony's not being seen, Okafor wasn't playing, all this type of stuff. Smith's been in and out,
mm,
so they need to get some certainty as to what it is that they're going to finish with and decide basically on their back court as well. Um, Surrey need to play more games. Bottom
mm,
line, they played 7 games. They need to play more games to get a true reflection of where they're at. They need to also decide what they're going to get out of Kuntz because he's not played for about a month.
mm.
He wasn't great when he did play. Um, Next one up was what, Manchester?
Leicester, I think it was.
Leicester. Well, Leicester are on the upward path because they've got the lineup that you want now, and if they can play middling defense, their offense should carry them.
Mm,
Um, I don't think they're going to be a dominant defensive team with the group that they've got, but I think they've got enough offense to win a lot of
mm,
games. Yes, it'll be that way. Manchester, oof, they got so many moving parts.
mm,
Good. They're your typical SLB. Talented at home, not quite sure what you're going to get on the road type of
mm,
team, young, and lots of bodies, and you're not quite sure who's going to play. Then Leicester, Manchester,
Cheshire.
Cheshire. We seem to have talked an enormous amount of them for them to be 6-6, and then kind
Mm.
of the definition of not well, I suppose mediocrity, 6-6, isn't it? I mean,
Well, they're 5-1 at home and 1-5 away.
yeah, so they win. Yeah, well, that might be a summary of how they got to get better. Got to
Mm,
get maybe a little bit more, a few more stops on the road, and maybe play a little bit more judiciously. Against that, 3 of those games were the first 3 games of the season.
yeah, yeah, they were. Yeah,
So and that was again Manchester, Newcastle, London.
yeah,
So not the easiest 3 games as well. So maybe that might be a little bit false. You would say they were trending upwards,
yeah,
but
definitely.
that loss against Manchester will be a bit of it's a bad taste there because you're 19 up in the third quarter. And at that point, you're hoping, if we blow this team out and then we blow Bristol out, then we're sending a message that
Yeah, yeah,
that's the
yeah,
team
yeah.
up. Sheffield, um, yeah, Sheffield are interesting because
Mm,
they have probably the best player in the league in Dirk Williams, and maybe they were one of the second or third best outside of London. Sorry, obviously
mm,
outside of Scott, and maybe the second or third best player in Chapman. These two
mm,
guys are really, really talented. Um, they've got depth. They have every capability of being the next best team to London. Basically, they're going to have his integration of all their players once
mm.
they play this
Once
weekend.
everybody's fit.
Once
Yeah,
everyone's fit, Nixon and James,
yeah.
that stuff, and the ball has been moving better without Nixon. That's not a knock on Nixon. It's just the way the game is.
Mm,
You take one person away, you unlock something else.
mm,
And Bristol, well, Bristol have overachieved for effectively a new team with new imports. Um, Literally 6 new imports, um, all of whom outside are holding on new to the league.
mm,
To accomplish what they've done, to be as good as there are, you have to say, they would get the A star at the moment
mm,
because for overachievement. Um, I don't necessarily think they're going to finish second, especially with the European stuff going on. I think that there might be a bit of regression to the mean late in the season. They're not as deep as Sheffield, probably not as talented as either Sheffield or Cheshire, but what they've accomplished so far has been very impressive. And London,
London.
obviously, London are a Euro Cup team
Mm,
and a decent Euro Cup team,
yeah, decent.
mid-level Euro Cup team, and there's no way in the world that they shouldn't be beating SLB teams with the
Mm,
depth that they have. And actually, the little tweak has really helped them in relation to being able to rest players.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I know they can't play as many, but when you've got the level of British player that they've got,
yeah, yeah.
Rye, Williams, Tariq Phillip, and
Adamu,
Adamu, and obviously then
Price,
Price. That's 5 guys, and then Sandy's played well at SLB as
Sandy.
well.
Yeah, Sandy's played really well.
Yeah, so those 6 guys, you don't need 5 Americans every week.
Solowadi, we've got
Solowadi,
Solowadi.
that's
Yeah,
7, yeah.
yeah,
So you don't need 5 Americans or
mm,
5 or 6 Americans. You can rotate them in and out. So that means, as Stuart pointed out in the rather ironically, in the pre-game interview on Sunday. I said, how do you prepare for these?" He said, "Well, I have to find out who's playing first."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that kind of it kind of actually helps the coach in getting his players in, but it all depends upon the talent of the British guys,
Mm,
and they've been able to pay for they've been able to pay Euro Cup money for the best British players. Let's
mm,
be, but for the British players who are slightly higher level than the other British players in the SLB, which is their prerogative. But what I will say is, hopefully it'll help our national team because Price in particular has excelled. Hopefully Williams, if we don't know, I don't know who's playing on Thursday night. There's been no squad released yet.
no,
I imagine most of the players probably booked holidays when they found the game was cancelled, thanks to
yeah,
BF, and decided they weren't going to come. Tickets went on sale Thursday or Friday. Great
yeah.
job,
Well,
administrators.
second time round.
Second time round after yeah,
Mm.
exactly.
We should mention that actually because we've not really talked about it. It's pretty poor actually. Some of the stories that have come out because obviously there was a cock up and I don't know whose fault it is. I've heard blame thrown about, but somebody some reason released tickets on Ticketmaster where
Yeah,
the floor plan basically was for a concert rather than a basketball game. And then it came off sale, and then I think BBF put out the fact that it was unregistered or something.
yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
Yeah, made it sound as if it was some sort of like fake thing, which I don't believe it was. I think it was a mistake in the floor plan. And then they went back on sale, and obviously the people who had bought tickets, some of whom that I've spoken to are loyal GB fans who've travelled the continent supporting the team, who'd bought tickets behind the bench, were then moved without consultation into away sections. Now, I should imagine a great chunk of it will be away section
yeah.
because it's Lithuania,
Have you hoped?
but moved and then fobbed off as well. And I was told by one supporter that they were told they had to move because it was a restricted view, which is rubbish. They're sat behind the bench. There's no restricted
Oh,
view
I've
in
opted.
the copper box at all. And then and they weren't even offered. And by the way, the tickets that they'd bought went back on sale for double the price or something or other, which is not great. But they weren't even given the opportunity to pay more to sit in the seat that they wanted to. And obviously, there's a group of them who follow the team home and away who want to sit together and make some noise together and support the team, and they've sort of been scattered to the wind. It's really really poor. And look, everybody makes a mistake. I haven't got a problem with the fact that somebody put the wrong floor plan up for whatever reason, trying to get the tickets on sale quickly. But you can't compound the mistake by making it worse and basically either fobbing people off or possibly even lying to them. That's certainly how it's been
Well, yeah.
portrayed to me, and I think it's just really bad, just really really bad when you've got people who've spent money going all around Europe supporting this team. These are the hardest of hardcore,
Yeah.
and you've got them saying, "I'm not even two different fans who I would describe as very very hardcore GB fans, the ones that you always see when they cut away in any GB game wherever in Europe, have both said, one on Twitter and one directly to me, we thought about not even going to the game. We thought about just going bugger it and not even going. But I believe both of them have said, well, it wouldn't be fair on Mark on the players, so we're
Well,
going
you
to suck
see,
it up. But
you,
that's crap.
you describe it as pretty poor. I mean, that's commentary
Mm, mm,
understatement, isn't it? Let's be honest,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
shambolic.
Mm,
It's beyond shambolic.
mm,
In these games, they cancelled the game unilaterally,
mm,
and then they've had what 4 weeks to sort it out. And whether I'm not sure if it's gone back to the national governing bodies now or whatever to do it. Um, but it's shambolic. It's an
mm,
embarrassment. The whole thing. I mean, literally, the whole thing is. Um, we've shot four of our toes off. Let's shoot another four
mm.
of our toes
Yeah,
off.
yeah, yeah.
Just beyond contemplation as to when we have a track record in this country, whether you like it or not, whether you like whether you have problems with the BBL or the SLB or whatever. We have a track record of filling arenas for big games
Mm,
with fans who may not even know who's playing.
mm,
Cup finals at Birmingham,
yeah.
10,000 people, 500 from Newcastle, 1,000 from Leicester, whatever,
Mm,
Where who the other, we fill it. Those guys know how to fill it.
mm,
And the fact that, again, it's people, and that means all the stuff you're talking about.
mm.
Means all the itchy, twisty bit. How do we get the court laid? Where are the baskets coming from? Where's
My
the
thing
street
is,
band
right?
going from?
The,
How is who's doing the
yeah,
press,
yeah,
the press stuff? All of
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. My thing is, though, it's not a massive group of people, but we all know you know who they are. I know who they are, right? It's not a massive group. If they bought the tickets and you've sold them for I don't know whatever number, 24 quid or whatever it was, and you want to sell it for 48 quid, fine. Offer them the opportunity. Say there's been a mistake. Offer them the opportunity. And in real world, I'd say, you know what? Take the hit. Sell all of the tickets around them for 48 quid. They got a bargain because they were the first ones to
Well, I'm
snap them up.
interested from the perspective of being a lawyer, and I'm not a
Well,
contractual
yeah, yeah,
lawyer. If you buy a ticket for 24 quid and it's not
yeah,
not one of these kind of internet sale glitches,
yeah,
where
yeah.
you house for £3.50.
I've seen it
Um,
suggested that it might well be contradictory to Ticketmaster's terms and conditions, but I haven't
I
gone
would
to the
suggest
bother
it
of looking to see
probably
what ticket.
is.
Yeah,
But more than that, it's just basically crapping on your consumer,
yeah.
isn't it? Let's be honest.
And
And
but it's one thing to crap on people who are just randomers.
yeah,
This is the hardest of the hardcore. It's
hardcore.
like,
And
what are we
then
doing?
you'll get the the lionizing Facebook posts about
Yeah,
for this and pay
yeah.
for that, and it
Well, that'll be the thing. Where when you go back, when by the way, when you go back to the social media posts from Finland
yeah,
in the summer, those people that I'm talking about are in the picture. They're the ones that they put out. These are our great fans with the team at the end. Those are the people that are getting screwed over.
yeah. But it will be cock up, not conspiracy.
Yeah, yeah, totally cock up. But
But,
don't.
how many
This is the thing.
cock ups
Like
do
we
we have
talked
to
about.
deal with?
Yeah, we talked about last week with the Newcastle game
Yeah,
where there was a cock up made and then the referee compounded it with a technical.
yeah.
It's the same thing. With whoever it is that's in charge of all of this, and I don't even know, is calling technicals on people for missed
For supporting the
goaltending.
team.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. For supporting the team. Yeah.
Well, I suppose at least they're not charging £67.
Mm. Oh dear. 6-7. Right, we're going now. What are you doing with your weekend off, Dave? You got a weekend off next week? No
Um,
SMB?
well, I don't know. I better not tell anybody because they
Yeah,
won't do
yeah.
things with them. I'll probably go into a darkened room. But when's the Iceland game? When are we playing Iceland?
Is it Sunday? I don't know.
It's
Monday?
Sunday.
Monday? I don't know. I haven't looked that far ahead, but
Oh,
yeah.
right. I don't know actually. Christmas is coming. We've got the Centre Parks trip just before Christmas. That will be joyous.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. Dan,
Mm,
might have to widen my horizons
well,
beyond
possible.
Ellesmere Port Sports Centre in the Wise campus. Where am I going to go? Or maybe I'll pour back over books of stats to try and find one that you haven't got. Maybe. No, have a look
Fouls
there.
in the first half.
Or
That's
maybe I'll
where
just
we're going.
maybe I'll just stick our 2014 15 game at the O2 Arena on a loop and watch it for
There we go.
24 hours.
There we go.
The clean sweep game and then just
Yeah.
think and retire happy.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. What are you going to do?
I don't know. We'll work that out when we
You got
get
any
there.
European games? You got
Yeah.
any games to commentate on? Got any
Nothing.
FIFA
You know,
games?
nothing. EuroLeague on Wednesday. That's my
EuroLeague.
next
Oh,
one.
they're still playing EuroLeague.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So FIBA and EuroLeague haven't quite come to enough
Not
of it.
quite. Not
Not
quite.
quite yet.
No.
Yeah.
Still talking about it.
Yeah.
We're not going to solve that problem.
No.
Uh, so we will not be here next week, people. Note for your diaries. You'll have to go back and listen to some of the old back catalogue from 5 years ago to fill your fill your weekends. But we'll be back in 2 weeks' time to do it all over again.
That fills
So
me with dread, that there's a back catalogue of this.
yeah, no, it's wild, isn't it?
The most untouched court, it'll be the, 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 the dark web of the basketball
Yeah,
world.
yeah, yeah.
Only only the desperate, inadequate.
somewhere there is 5 liters of water being used to just keep me and you.
So 3 kids in Africa have died of malnutrition because of our oh, damn. I mean,
Basically, that's it. Yeah,
lovely. Ah, all
right.
hail Elon. All hail Elon.
On that cheery note, we'll go and we'll be back in 2 weeks' time. Have a good international break, people. See ya. Bye bye.
I know.